with a little bit of luck, we can finish this one off today. Because I just want to get on with this. I also made a lot of mistakes in my last video regarding things like this, like, there's a difference between the actual strength and power behind a solar flare and how much hits the Earth, because, you know, the sun's pretty far away. You know, still though. It's weird that fireworks is also fireworks in Dutch, although it's singular. Really odd, isn't it? That it's one of those odd similarities where, like, really? Why would that be the same? How do you know 50%? Like, you have a lot of global information about this. Unless it's like, oh, I happen to know that it was 50% of the time. Which is still kind of like very specific information for your character to just have on hand. Yeah, long-distance communication is not something we really have. Long-distance communication. It's not something we have a... Yeah, not something we have an easy term for. I like this one. Diseases that haven't been seen for years came back quickly and hard into daily life. It's a bit more somber if you add the daily life part than in a sightly fashion. It's more like, yeah, this is just life now. Life just fucking blows. Ugh. Horrible thing to think about. What is the yeah, what is like the aanbeden? A lot of people are throwing blame around, but everyone's like, nah. Why would people suddenly go to war? Like, the funny thing is, when you're in a situation like this, like, to go to war is a luxury, which is something a lot of people tend to forget. You aren't going to go to war. You're going to raid people, but you're not going to hold territory and land and resources if you don't have the resources to hold land and resources in the first place, you know? Like, there's a difference between raiding places for, like, just things you need, and straight-up warfare. You're not going to have a fucking war in Fallout Land because you don't have the manpower or the resources to wage war. You're going to steal shit. You might make some alliances that are very clumsily written, but you're not going to go into an actual war. You know? Especially with everyone dying. Especially if everyone's educated like that. Like, they're smarter than that. They know the numbers aren't going to work out. Like, the thing is, everyone's educated and implied to be in a good social, economical... Like, they have the mindset for it. They've been talking to people for years. Like, why would everyone go so primitive if they've essentially been taught for a large portion of their life to believe in the goodness of humanity? Like, there's not much crime, so... Wouldn't war be extremely clumsy, too? Like, no one knows what the fuck to do? What the fuck are the Middle Ages? Dragons don't know what that is. Like, another thing is, a lot of terms you use, dragons wouldn't understand. Like, they're very human contextual. Also, that's not how governments collapse. People are going to stick with the government because it's, fun fact, a lot more practical than trying to carve out your own one, you know? Like, some people might object and revolt, but for the most part, people are going to stick to what they have for as long as they can. Because, trust me, once you've had a taste of the new life, a lot of people are just like, no, I'd rather have the security of a government. Of course, there's probably going to be some people who are going to just shoot someone like John McCain, because they have the perfect opportunity for it. But besides that, you know, you're vastly overestimating how many people think the government needs to go up in smoke. And even then, like, these new governments are probably going to do fine anyway. Like, why would they be worse? Like, these people come from a system where their government works fine, so they're just going to instate the government they know that works. Why would they suddenly go to a... Maybe they'll think like, okay, we're gonna do what the Romans did. We're in a bad situation, so we're gonna have a dictatorship. They might do that. Who knows? But this odd implication that because the old governments fell... Governments change a lot! There have been huge changes in government in very big countries over the last few years. Like, people are just completely missing the point that changing government is not necessarily a bad thing, and not necessarily something that results in bad things. The main reason that the Middle East changes government and gets fucked up has nothing to do with the changing of government, and a lot more to do with the circumstances surrounding those governments. Just saying, the changing of governments is not a sign of something bad. It is also not a bad thing. It just happens that in this modern time it tends to coincide with it a lot more. But back in the olden days, whew. I mean, just look at how many fucking kings stepped down. How many democratic governments got set up. How Russia started lying about how democratic they are. I like this better. And power vacuum sucked people in and destroyed everything. Because that's what a power vacuum tends to do. The problem is, a power vacuum implies that once you take power, people are going to follow you. Fun fact, no one is fucking obliged to follow you just because you're sitting in the president's chair. Power is a very abstract concept that requires the agreement of an entire society. Like, you can have, like, the couple of people around you, but you can only control as much as those people are able to control for you. You can't extend your power beyond the power that you already have by committing a coup, is what I'm trying to say. It's very hard to do that. Like, the military can just be like, well, I think that you're an asshole, and I have, like, 50,000 men here, and you're 10 men who just walked into the president's office. I'm gonna take my chances. I'm gonna take my fucking chances. Boom! President's office just leveled to the ground. Where are you now, Mr. Coup de Grace? Oh. And how are, like, the fact that any survives implies that across the entire planet there's enough. In some respects. Like, what survived? What pieces did survive? Like, if the PDA survived, then what does that say to us? What does that tell us? Like, what do they have? And what kind of, like, primitive energy sources do they have now? Because think about this. It wouldn't be too hard to rebuild the wind generators. Like, the giant fucking wind towers are still online, and they're mostly mechanical electric. You just need some metal to spool in it, and you can start making power again. Because what they really are is giant magnets spinning around a piece of metal. So if you just get some metal, you can get it sort of working again to some extent. Like, if you go to clean power, you start... Now, I guess solar power would be a problem. Unless you got, like, certain types of solar power, which are just heating up water and pulling it through generators. Like, depending on what kind of power you're talking about, and even then, even fucking then, like, you can say what you want, but, I guess it's information. I guess just people don't know how. Like, without the internet, they don't know how. Like, I don't know how to fucking build a generator, I guess. So that's kind of the point. Which, honestly... is another push for people to not start raiding the storehouses, but the archives, because that's where the good shit's at. Why would people hold fucking wars over them? Like, what are they? And why? No one is going to fight over a fucking iPhone when they need to eat. Especially without the internet. Like, why are they fighting over them? Are they tractors? Are they hydroponics installations? Because that's not an electronic device. That's an electronic installation. Like, what survived the fucking apocalypse that's worth fighting for? Because, you know what's going to be really expensive in the apocalypse? Toilet paper, food, water, especially fucking water, smokes, alcohol, anything that takes away the pain. But not a fucking iPhone! No one is going to fight over that. Maybe electronic books. Maybe books, because again, people are going to need farming information. Like, how do I farm? How do I maintain a plant? How do I keep my animal from dying? You know, medical books. But they're not going to fucking fight over a television. Unless the television plays electronic archives. But that's never explained. Like, the way it's put, it sounds like people are fighting over 3DSs for no reason. Another quick thing. Reza is not that fucking old, went to college. Reza is at what? He's maybe 30, 40, meaning this isn't even a generational gap, and people are suddenly like this. Like, say what you fucking want, but this would work so much better if it was set up better. If there was more panic, more reason to panic. People had a fucking week. Like, the story, like, this is a massive plot point, and it talks too much about it. If it was kept vague, or much directer and stricter, much more emergent, like a whole fucking country got scorched. Like, that's the kind of damage that was dealt. Fine. But the way it's set up, it just sounds like everyone stubbed their toe and started fighting for no reason. Just like, oh no, I stubbed my toe. I'm not gonna go to work and just kill everyone now, I guess. It just... oh, it just sounds so irrational. And considering it's implied that everyone's a lot more rational now, like, this isn't Fallout. This isn't several countries going completely fucking mad. This is just, it just doesn't make any sense. You know? Unless everyone had a fucking chip in their head that made them more rational. Like, that's how they did it. Everyone was brainwashed. And then, when it happened, the brainwashing stopped. And that's why everyone's an asshole now. Like, that'd be a great story point. Like, everyone was brainwashed in this future because of the technology in their brain. good fucking story, but not what's told. Instead, it sounds like humanity is a completely different kind of humanity, because this sounds so extreme. Like, I want you to go to an actual war-torn country and see this is not what happens for the most... Like, if there's an actual war, if there's, like, this war of mine, I think shows it very well. Like, people are going to stick together, but... Like, actually, the war of mine doesn't really work, because in that one, it's not the apocalypse, it's just a city is under siege. And for the most part, it's just pockets of people trying to survive, and there's a bunch of assholes. It's still trying to be about, like, the worst of humanity, you know? Like, that's another thing, is it's very hard to know how this is going to work without actually seeing it, because most books focus on the bad stuff, because that's the drama. That's the good story. It's the good story when everyone goes completely bananas. But the realism behind it is questionable. Like, we don't really have any situation like this. I mean, on one hand, America, who was doing fine in the war, was building concentration camps and basically locking up every Japanese person. You have Japan, who was essentially just committing massive genocide and raping Nanking for really just nothing but a couple of petty squabbles in the end. Because, oh my god, like, oh. And then you've got fucking Germany, who did the same thing to the Jews, while they weren't in that bad of a situation. And when you really look at it, like, people can be terrible, but you have to ask yourself, is what is the cause of it, and how can this be replicated? Like, what are the circumstances required for this to happen? Like, even now, there is a large amount of people who are looking at the government and saying, this government's terrible. But they're not revolting, they're not committing coups, they're not blowing up government institutions. Despite this massive disagreement. Like, ask yourself this question. If fucking Donald Trump can't cause the entirety of the United States to just spontaneously collapse, then the apocalypse is probably not going to be that bad. Because the... I know that sounds bad, but just think about it. Just think about it. A lot of people thought this was going to be the end of the fucking world if that guy became president, and everyone just sort of waited it out, and everything's fine now, or not as bad. It's interesting, but it could be... actually, it depends. I don't know. Like, the funny thing is someone in the future is going to look at this, like someone after Trump's presidency, and it's going to be like, no, it wasn't like that. And that's going to be great. Man of the future, who's watching right now, leave a comment. I'd love to be reminded of this rant. I'd love to be reminded of this in either post-apocalyptia or in the post-Trump world, and be reminded of just how everything turned out. I'd find it hilarious to look back at myself and be like, wow, what a little shit I was. It'll be great. Also, how the fuck did they build a wall? Like, a city-state with a fucking wall is expensive. Did you know that even back in medieval times, building a wall is pretty goddamn expensive? Castles are expensive. Like, the fact you have the resources to build a huge wall that can keep you safe, and have militia and all this crap, implies that humanity is rather well off. Having militia, having a wall, having this kind of self-security, that's a lot of luxuries right off the bat. Like, that's a lot more than you think it is. Because, you know, back in yonder yesteryear, when humanity was kind of sitting in tents, they didn't have fucking walls. They had probably some traps, maybe some branches or something to cover the place up. But they didn't have, like, infrastructures like this. Their militia was just the men who helped hunt, you know? Like the women who hunted, the men who hunted. Whoever hunted and actually did, like, the fighting stuff, they were just staying up at night. They were just like, I'm gonna stay up. No massive organization. Like, you already got a leg up on those kids. You got a big leg up. Not to mention you have years of warfare to, like, learn, like, what is a good trap, what's a good strategic location. Although, again, I guess information is the luxury, isn't it? Like, that's the funny thing is, information is like a luxury resource now. Which is something a lot of people tend to miss. Is it's surprisingly hard to grow a crop if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't know what kind of soil to look for, how much to water it, what to do in case of insects or anything. Like, crop maintenance is expensive. There's a reason that large portions of humanity were devoted to farming for huge periods in human history. And why only recently, with mechanization and industrialization, that has stopped. And of course also, like, those I would go, like, you don't call them that? Like, you're just there against your will or something? Also, it's a giant self-sufficient city-state, implying you have a huge stockpile of resources of some sorts to maintain that. Because being a large, organized government takes a lot of fucking resources. Like, what is the hell's going on now? Like, maybe you've exhausted the soil, but with these kinds of resources, you can easily just make like a crop rotation system and keep things going, you know? Like, I can understand that, like, you don't have the resources to farm large scale, but you don't need people doing anything but farming because you're focused on survival. Like, you could have, like, a couple of dudes who do, like, the scouting and the fighting, but, not to mention you already have, like, I would highly doubt that highly educated people don't know, like, some things about, like, how to grow plants, how to maintain food, how to forage and all that. Like, come on. I mean, I don't think I could distinguish berries. But you just need one of those books and you can start teaching people, right? Like, I can't imagine a future where people don't have books, because books are so nice. They stuff up your fucking bookshelves. What are you gonna do with a house without books? Books have become such a fucking surface stuffer. Unless everyone has paintings and they live in those stupid art... Like, I guess I'm just overestimating the situation, but still. Like, come on. I think my dad has, like, a room full of very useful books in case of the apocalypse. But don't undersell them, kids. Those books are worth a lot more than a couple of rolls of toilet paper in the end. Just give them what they want, but nothing more out of the book. Like, teach them. Teach them. If you teach a man, he'll come back later to learn more. If you give him the book, well, you just lost out on future patrons. Just saying. Also, the fact the city is self-sufficient implies you have a long-term self-sufficiency. You are not self-sufficient if you aren't able to maintain it long-term. Then you're just sufficient, but not self-sufficient. You're still reliant on outside resources and outside income. If you want to be an if you want to be an exothermic entity, you need to have the ability to, you know, maintain yourself, which you don't. Like, the sun is still fucking shining, and I highly doubt a solar flare made the whole sky dark. So, yeah, like, yeah, but what supplies are running low? Like, what are you using? Are you talking about, like, soils or something? Like, I'd assume that if you've been able to live for a few years, you've probably been able to scavenge books, information, you've transcribed stuff. Like, again, the fact that this is a few years and a lot of, like, old world people who know stuff are still alive, like, the barrier is minimal. Like, the thing with Fallout is everything got blown to shit. Nuclear radiation destroyed everything. And the clouds were dark with smoke. Like, you got a good scenario in which humanity is basically fucked. But here it's like, there was a power surge and everything was turned off, and I guess we have some things that are still working. Like, the situation is not nearly as bad as it makes it out to be. Like, this is not an endgame scenario. Especially since it's something like Fallout. Yes, reasonably, people could still be alive after all that. You know, after a while. Although that is debatable. Like, Fallout does seem to be rather optimistic with the survival chances in a post-apocalyptic universe. I mean, say what you want, but radiation is quite dangerous. Holy shit, man. Like the shit that happened in Hiroshima, ooh boy, that shit's ouchie baba. Although, I guess, if you could survive somewhere where it wasn't too radioactive for a long enough period of time, like you could actually sit in the bunker for about 10 or 20 years, it wouldn't be as bad. It would still be terrible. It'd still be basically fucked, but, you know. And that being said, anyone who builds a fucking bunker like that, like, here's another thing. If you have a week to prepare, what are you gonna do? You're gonna get fucking books on farming, on like, base defenses. You're gonna get information you need. Like, you know, like, you're gonna stockpile information and resources. Like, there's gonna be some people who were smart enough to know that, right? Like, people who organized for this, who said, like, you're gonna get the food, you're gonna get the blankets, I'm gonna get the books. You know, like, I understand that, of course, there is just the chances that some areas didn't prepare for that like that. But it's implied this world is already, like, post-scarcity. Which, you know, post-scarcity worlds, tipping them over is easy. Yeah, sure, you can do it. But it has its own complications with, like, what happens after that. Like, what happens when all the shit stops being bad and it's all just do what you want? Like, what happens then? How do you keep them down at that point? Because for the most part, like, things blew up and there were fires, yes, but there's probably still a lot of buildings left, a lot of electronic equipment you can dissect and learn from. There's a lot of old music, actually. Like, the thing is, it could have just been, like, there's too many fires. Like, too many fires. Everything got burnt down, and we had to rebuild everything. That's a good fucking explanation for this, but it doesn't make that explanation at all. For some reason, it doesn't bother to talk about that. Like, it goes into detail, but at the same time, it doesn't go into enough detail to make it sound reasonable. When you really start to think about it, maybe I just need more. Maybe someone's gonna do all the math, he's gonna be like, well, actually, you're wrong, like, it would end up like this, and I'm fine. I'd accept that. But this fucking story would have been so much better if he just went, well, a solar flare happened, and it just destroyed humanity. No other arguments needed. Just say we were very vulnerable to it, and it blew us up. Because the more detail you add, the more you start making it sound like, well, you're doing fine, actually. The more I'm going to be like, why did you need... Like, the portal is a huge investment, all things considered. Like, the way you're talking about this sounds like you can't afford this investment, and yet you are? Like, the portal is implied to use so much energy that how can you explain reasonably using this? And why doesn't the portal have its own power source? Why did the portal survive and not its power source? Like, all those kind of questions. Like, there's so many questions and no answers, and the more you think about it, the more, could have used some extra writing. Also, for some reason, a lot of people are talking about, like, a prequel. I don't know why. What is militia in Dutch? On the plus side, after this, I won't complain as much. Oh, fuck. Is this a chapter where Lady McLady comes... Oh, man. Oh, is that chapter 4? I don't want to deal with that! Why are there so many plot dumps? Like, chapter 1 and 2 is like there's a nice flow to it, and this just drops dead in the fucking water to talk way too much about this shit. Ugh! Stop talking so much, game. Like, how the hell do those raiders and looters survive? Like, raiding and looting is not a long-term solution. And you can't stick around a city that's self-sufficient because they've already raided and looted their own area, you know? Like, how are they surviving? Like, how bad is it really if that's the situation you're in? Oh, doesn't it, like, mention later that, like, things are getting quiet outside? How the fuck are you scouting? Yeah, but what about the raiders and looters that you were so worried about? Also, months? Like, it's at most like 5 to 10 years. And you're talking about months. That's not that much time. They might have just been like, well, we don't like those guys anymore. They and their stupid self-sufficient city. Also, where are those other settlements? Why did they go to the other settlements? How did they communicate with the other settlements? Also, how the fuck do you not know? Like, how far is this fucking portal? Like, taking those resources there must have cost a lot of lives anyway. Like, just don't talk too much. That's such a problem of this game. It talks too much about things it should not be talking about. And it ruins things when you think about them. And what a negative outlook. We have to keep a wall, or we... I want to point out that there isn't a giant wall besides Mexico right now, and America and Mexico aren't still completely dissolving into nuclear warfare. Just saying. Like, post-Trump, it's such a weird thing to think about the fucking wall. Raiders. What are raiders? Maybe you don't know. Like, it's entirely possible you don't know anything about this. Like, the situation's fine, and the local city-state is just lying to you. That'd be a great fucking story point. Like, it's fine. Everything is fine. You've just been lied to. What a great story point that this story never focuses on. Why would they care about your PDA, though? Like, what the fuck's on that thing that matters so much to them? Like, sure, it's a nice little doohickey, but I'm pretty sure most looters will be like, okay, you have food, also you have this nice thing. I'm gonna take the food. I'd rather live another day, you know? Like, if I find someone, and it's like in the apocalypse, I'm not gonna steal his fucking shoes if I don't need them, or can't wear them. Why would I? Also, you fucking flourished! You have livestock! You have not automated a hospital! Like, what resources are running low? Like, you're... like... Like, Reza comes from the old fucking world! How old is this place? The timelines are super strict and we just... I hate this. It's so... Like, it's not with, like with the fucking... Our researchers know about this. With, Epsom. Where Epsom knows something that he should not in any fucking way should be able to know. This is just... The logic is strained to crap. Holy shit, have I not seen strained logic like this before. And being confronted with it. And forced to think about it this hard. It hurts. Salvaged. Like what resources? Is it fuel? Because fuel would really only affect your automated hospital. And, funny thing, you don't need that much medical care, all things considered. The basics are just clean your fucking wounds, stay in bed and get rest when you're sick. Like... like, I'm just saying, your human body can take more than you think it does. If you just have clean water. And all you need for clean water is cut down a tree and boil some. I'm pretty sure making fire isn't a magical trick that you need a special magic user for. And the only reason he's a magic user is because he's lower than 3 strength, and he's a dumbass. I just love that about D&D. How there's like, in AD&D, there's like, if you're lower than this intelligence, you can only be a fighter. Which is hilarious. It's like, you're so dumb, all you can do is hit things with sticks. It just makes me giggle. Also the fact that strength, when you get 18 strength, you roll a percentile die for some fucking reason to determine like what your actual strength is, and if you get double zeros, you get like super like, it's so weird! I love it! I like how even though power is running out, a disease is already running rampant. Like, it didn't take a... like, someone turns off the fucking light and suddenly diseases spring out of the closets. And now your population... like, the logic is strained. What's the timeline? Or, like, wait, where did you say you came from the old world? Like, it's possible I got that wrong. Although it's implied, because it wouldn't make any fucking sense for this post-apocalyptic world to have access to an entire institute like that. But yeah, like, again, for the measure of your defense, as like, I don't want to go back, enough would be, they would shoot me because I'm a traitor because I fucked up. Like, that's all you need to get Emmer to be like, okay, I guess I could keep you here. Wait, why do they... Oh, okay, I guess they... Why did they go like this, though? Intro 1 with dissolve. What the hell's going on here? Oh, did they do a fucking drop? I think they did a fucking drop here. Oh, no, there it is. Oh, they show you the intro image again. Which, again, is a really nice grassy hill. Which implies that nature is doing just fucking fine. And here's the fun thing. Humans are animals! And animals can live fine in nature. Like, it would take some people dying, but eventually figure out what you can eat, what you can't eat, what you can grow, what you can hunt, how to cut it. Like... It would take a while, but with modern intelligence and insights, you'd be off pretty well. Like, modern science as a process by which to gather information is remarkably concrete at fixing itself if some is lost. The fucking power population just makes me go. I don't know, something about it. Like, it's like, there's so much about this that doesn't add up. Like, why don't you go to the other settlements and raid them? Like, what are the odds that raiders got them in? Like, if you have a fucking well-known militia, you probably have more men than whenever Mad Max asshole shows up. Those raiders need a base of it. The logic is strained. You need to explain more. Here's the thing. If you take a bar, and on one side you have enough for the practical purposes, like, don't bring me back, I'll get killed. On the other side you have, here is literally how the world is built. This one is like 10% across. It's far enough that it doesn't make sense anymore. Like, you haven't gone to the middle point where you know enough and you're like, okay, I can make a reasonable assessment. Like, it's not far enough. You only took the first few steps and it's not enough. The logic is strained as a result because I don't understand why it would go wrong. Like, you haven't made clear why these are such bad things, that things are going horribly. Because if you aren't hearing from those other settlements and there's a dead zone, where the fuck are the raiders? And why would they be hard to avoid? Like, how are they surviving? Take tips! If the raiders are doing fine, so can you. Yeah, but, like, you'd really only need one, right? Like, the generators are so incredibly powerful that one would generally suffice. Like, you'd have some power, enough that if your population shrinks, you'd eventually be fine. Like, protect your most important, Although there is, of course, the farming thing, which would require you to have a very sizable population to maintain farming. Farming is very labor-intensive and not that effective in the long run. It's good at maintaining populations when you have high efficiency and yield, but that requires technologies, like a lot of technologies. So I'd want a couple, like a couple for some tractors or something. Oh, the state of the rest of the world is unknown, including those numbers I pulled out of my fucking ass about how the world was doing before. It's just speculation on what happened. Like, it's possible you're on the better side of the world, which would, again, be a good story point, but you never point it out. We do know there's fucking raiders who are apparently doing just fucking fine. God damn it. But Reza came before us. Did Reza get told that? But here's the thing, like, if you said that, the dragons would have given you a fucking generator for free right there and then. They would have been like, you know what, we do want to explore this. Generators are super fucking cheap. Here is one. Because, remember this, they make it very clear that generators can be requested on demand. Wait, do we spell... Yeah, we do spell it with it. I like how the song is still the same. Or did it fade out? Oh, it's now Baron. It's now Baron. You want to listen to Baron? Oh, God, this song. Yeah, I remember the song at this moment. Ah, this is such a... I hate this song because it's so good at what it's supposed to do. It's such a melancholy song. Where you're like, no, not the video games. Not the video games. I hate the video games. Bark 3. Like this... The funny thing is that I bitched a moment ago, but once you come back to this, and the whole situation, where it's like, you're basically boned. You know. Like, the flashback is so stupid, and they come to this moment, and suddenly it's like humanity, it's the humanity of the situation, and not humanity as the identity. And suddenly I'm like, this is good. This is good writing. This is fun writing. This is a good story. Like, god damn did I flash back fast. Oh! Desperate. I'm starting to get the feeling that whenever I write Emera, I always write her as sort of miscontorting the language. Like, she uses words slightly wrong. I think I'm gonna keep that. Like, Emera wants to sound fancy, but she's not able to land it. It's really nice. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna keep that. Emera has a little speech pattern, a mannerism of sorts. Also, considering the circumstances, why doesn't Emera send you back with a generator that can power the portal? Like, what's the reason not to send you back with a means of coming back? Like, she knows you're fucked, that you need a generator to power the portal again. And she doesn't, like, account for that? She just sends you... Yeah, going home is totally not going to fucking kill you anyway. Let's send you away to where you will guaranteed die, instead of keeping you here where you may die. I'm done. Next time, it's probably gonna get better, because from here on out, it's a lot more human conversation, and while Maverick's little stunt is fucking stupid as hell, at least the story does kind of pick up from here. Whee!